Pokemon sets releasing in 2025 seem to be more volatile than ever before, though when looking at singles right now, there's actually some key information that needs to be understood before making purchases. Though before we get into that topic, I'm gifting a subscriber this Tatsuguri illustration rare from Twilight Masquerade. Now to know if you want, if I reply to your comment with this Togepi emoji, then get excited as this awesome sushi fish is coming your way. And hey, if you are new here, welcome to the channel. My name's Phil and I cover topics relating to Pokemon investing and collecting. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. Now, overspending on Pokemon cards right now is much more common than previous generations, right? And getting sets at retail price also seems to be close to impossible. Though I want to walk you through some pricing data, especially around singles at the moment, just so you can see how unstable the market is right now. Check this out. All right, so Magikarp illustration rare. If you remember how this card was early 2023 or mid 2023, it was all about the Magikarp illustration rare. It literally took so many people for surprise, and a lot of people were kind of confused, but a lot of people also welcomed this card in, right? Because people were kind of like, oh, all the chase cards were Giratina. We had the Moonbreon. We had Blaziken from Chill and Rain, Gengar VMAX, right? It was all these real cards with no to write, but then a Magikarp came along and it took the spotlight for a very long time. But look what's happening with the Magikarp recently, man. You can see the Magikarp hit a high for 280 US in March of this year, right? You can now see this has had a sharp decline, man. Selling for $208. Real big price dip on this card at the moment. Am I surprised that it's dropped like this? Not necessarily, because I think as an illustration rare, it is quite overinflated. And don't forget, to get this card as a PSA 10 is incredibly difficult. So while you're paying $200, this card has a 20% chance to become a PSA 10. You would essentially need to buy 5 of these in order to get one PSA 10. And that's anyone's guess if you're even going to get it. You also have to make sure that the quality and the centering is good when you make these purchases. Now, while speaking about these prices, right, if you are looking for a great resource to purchase Pokemon cards at community-driven prices, then that does bring me to today's video sponsor, which is Misprint. So Misprint is a US-based website which allows you to buy and sell Pokemon cards at the most reasonable and up-to-date prices. Now, Misprint has some very cool features, and one of them is the fact that it has a buy now feature and also a sell now feature. So if you want to sell a Pokemon product immediately, you can actually lock a sale in on the spot. So this actually becomes an essential feature if you need immediate liquidity. Now, if you download the Misprint app, you can actually scan as many slabs as you can fit in your photo. You can use this to list inventory real quick. Now, also, if you are on Misprint, there's also a weekly misprice section where each week a premium PSA 10 slab is listed. If you are selected, you only have to pay $5 for the slab. I mean, the more people who use Misprint, the better it gets for everyone, as literally it's a marketplace built by the Pokemon community. Now, if you do want to try Misprint out, feel free to use my code to get $5 off your first purchase. You can find all the details about Misprint within the video's description. Now, moving on to another one from Paldean Evolved, the Tyranitar illustration rare. You can see in the last 3 months as well, selling for 52 US, right now selling for 43. I find this one interesting, right? Because I'm going to be taking you through the Groudon illustration rare from Paradox Rift. Now, what I didn't understand is why did Groudon get the kind of high prices it got, which I will be speaking about. But this Tyranitar never hit that 100 US price point. And I actually think this artwork is absolutely gorgeous. I really rate this card, man. So to me, it was really interesting that, Magikarp was going so well. It's from the same set, same pull rates, but this Tyranitar never really got that big fire underneath its belly, right? It never really made it to that kind of position where a lot of people wanted it, which is interesting, right? It's a very old school Pokemon, pseudo-legendary. So for that reason, I thought it would have actually performed a little bit better than it did. If we pull this into the ear, you can see this card in some ways has been a bit more stable than a lot of other Pokemon cards. You can see selling for 45 US, fell down to 26, but right now still around 43 a year later. When I was showing you Magikarp, that was on 100, now it's on 200, right? So the Magikarp has just had huge price growth and one big drop, whereas the Tyranitar in a whole year has kind of stayed the same price from its last year price point all the way till now, albeit it did have a few price swings. Now, one that is wild to me, especially considering the whole Japanese female trainer card boom of 2023 is the Miriam Special Illustration Rare. Now, man, if you were collecting around 2023, when Scarlet and Violet Base came out and Paldean Evolved came out, no one was talking about Drowsy Illustration Rare. People weren't even talking that much about Magikarp Illustration Rare. It was all about the Miriam SIR and the Iono SIR from those two sets, because they were the first two sets from the Scarlet and Violet era. These two Special Illustration Rares were so heavily desired in mid-2023. It was a joke, man. And what this card has become is a lesson for everyone who collects Pokemon cards. If you are collecting Pokemon cards, let this card be a lesson, man, because I can't actually pull the pricing data back to 1 year, but this card was selling once for more than 100 US, right? It was so in demand. Everyone wanted it. And look at this, man. It's still crashing so heavily in value. From 36 US in February, right now selling for $24. I almost cannot believe it when I see it at that price point, considering how in demand it was. You know, right now for this card in particular, it is a good buy, man, because considering it's a Special Illustration Rare, considering it was once one of the most desired cards from the Scarlet and Violet era, can you believe that? I'm not even joking, man. This card was once that card. It was this and Iono. This card right now, I don't think it would even make it in the top 50 Scarlet and Violet era cards, though for me, I personally feel this card is a hidden gem at the moment. Now, moving on to the Groudon from Paradox Rift. This card, if it was a Special Illustration Rare, wow, oh wow, if this had texture, we would be having a different conversation right now. It would still be probably coming down in price because the whole Pokemon market is just going downwards at the moment. But still, check this one out, man. In the last 3 months, this card found a high of $108 in February, right now selling for 81 US. Pretty big price reduction in the last few months. If we pull this into the year graph, you can really see this card's journey. Last year selling for 35 US, and it had some stability in the market around, you know, that $50 range to $60 range. Then it kind of ballooned all the way up to $110. Right now selling for 80 bucks. Now, Paradox Rift wasn't kind of told that it was going to get a reprint with all those sets that are getting reprinted, you know, Twilight Masquerade, Paldean Fates booster bundles, Prismatic Evolutions, Journey Together. We're all hearing about these reprints, Surging Sparks, right? Paradox Rift didn't make the cut per se. I still think there probably will be some Paradox Rift that comes on the market, but it will be very interesting if all these other sets get reprints and Paradox Rift doesn't. Does that provide a unique opportunity for some Paradox Rift cards? Look, right now the market is volatile, right? Don't forget that it's likely that Pokemon cards will continue coming down in price because we are not even at summer right now. For the Europe and US summer period, that is when cards traditionally start coming down in price. Why I think they're still going to come down is because we are at the very early stages of that summer period, right? If you don't know how it works, usually things like collectibles during the summer period for US and Europe and those parts of the world, they start coming down in price, right? The reason for that is, you know, we don't have any data or science to prove this, but if we're just doing speculation, which you know, if we're just speculating, I personally think it's because people like to travel more. People like to do more social events. There's more things happening and collectibles take a back seat. I think collectibles are a little bit of a thing when you're at home. It's a bit more of like a recluse kind of thing that you do. And to prove that, during the pandemic is when collectibles kind of skyrocketed in value. Now, what were we doing during those times? We were all inside our homes, man. So it does have this weird, it would be interesting one day if we could get some sort of data points on this, is the more you're kind of a homebody, the more you're at home, the more you're like less going out outside, do you have more of a kind of attraction or a pull to kind of get more collectibles or collect more things? I don't know. Weird little thing that I've kind of made a connection point with, but you know, it is interesting that every time summer comes around, especially for, you know, the other parts of the world, because it is winter for us, it's interesting how that works. It's interesting how this whole cohort of people decide, hey, now it's time to sell my collection. And then as soon as winter comes back, everyone's trying to rebuy their collectibles. It's very, very strange. Now, moving on to the Raichu Illustration Rare, another one from Paldean Evolved. This one's interesting as well, man. Selling for 57 US. Right now selling for 50 bucks. You can see this card's stability has been better than a lot of other cards. Sure, the low part in the market has been 33 US, but right now selling for 50 bucks. Hasn't been as volatile as other cards. So we can see that there are pockets of Pokemon cards that are less volatile and less kind of, they're not immune to the crashes, but they probably have more stability because they never kind of exploded in price like other cards. So now they're dropping like a pin, right? So, you know, the Raichu and the Tyranitar as well, they do have a bit more stability in the market than some other cards, which is really interesting. Now, another very interesting card is the Ceruledge Illustration Rare from Surging Sparks. Really cool card. This was actually a giveaway in a previous video. A lot of people love this card. Not surprised because, you know, the artwork is absolutely gorgeous. But you can see, check this out, man. Selling for 38 US in February. Right now, selling for 20 bucks. That's nearly half price, man. What an enormous price reduction. Reason for that is because we've kind of heard that Surging Sparks is getting a reprint. As soon as reprint news come about, they start listing him, right? So it's very common. And that's why if you are keeping up to date with the hobby, you actually begin having a superpower, right? Because when you hear reprints are going to come on the market, if you've got a lot of singles or if you've bought a lot of singles, if you're first in line to get that information, you can actually sell these. And if you do actually want to know how to stay up to date with a lot of that news and, you know, when reprints come about, my channel's Discord, there's actually a section called leaks. A lot of people, as soon as that kind of news comes about, they post the information straight away. Really, really useful if you do purchase a lot of collectibles. Definitely feel free to join the Discord. The server invite is in the video's description. Though, as I was saying, man, the Ceruledge sitting at 20 US, pretty low price at the moment for this card, especially how gorgeous the artwork is. But more interestingly, when we look at the Ceruledge Special Illustration Rare from Prismatic Evolutions, man, Prismatic Evolutions, yeah, sure, it's expensive, but man, are the artworks so awesome. You know, in any other set, this card would be like a top 1 or top 2 chase card. But in Prismatic Evolutions, I don't know if this even makes the top 5, right? That's how good of a set it is. 32 SIRs. Absolutely wild set, man. When you look at the kind of cards and the caliber of the Pokemon inside Prismatic Evolutions, selling for 175 in February, right now selling for 216. If we pull this into the last 6 months, you can see as soon as this card had pre-release for 148, it's kind of stayed quite steady in the market. I am interested to see, with Prismatic Evolutions reprints on the way, I would be far more interested in these cards. Not right now, but more so next year in the summer period. Because I think right now the euphoria of Prismatic Evolutions is still there. People still can't get the set at retail price. If it does release and it's in the wild, people buy it straight away. So I am very, very interested to see where this card in particular will go. Because, you know, all these cards are super expensive. Don't forget, I was just telling you about the Magikarp was one of the top chase cards from the Scarlet and Violet era. This card is just another special illustration rare in Prismatic Evolutions, and it's more expensive than the Magikarp. Isn't that telling? So Prismatic Evolutions just has all these cards at absurd price points, and then top chase cards before Prismatic Evolutions kind of released can't even get those price points. So I do think that it's more like that. Every card in Prismatic Evolutions is almost like a trophy. I think Pokemon knew what they were doing when they created it. And because of that, I do think, you know, it is interesting to see these price points. Now, here we go. We can see the Paldean Fates cards. Paldean Fates Charizard selling for 140 US. Then ballooned up to 217, and right now fell down to 184. A lot of these cards from Paldean Fates actually coming down in price. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Paldean Fates is getting a reprint. Check out the Bubble Mew. This one is really interesting as well. See Bubble Mew selling for 419 in February. Right now selling for 318, 100 bucks off its high point. Pretty big hit to its value, right? Now, obviously, some people, you know, there's a lot of debating about this card because some people say, I'll show you why. Because if I pull this into the year graph, you can see that this card was selling for 92 in September. And if you look right here, you can see in December, this card was selling for 265. So a lot of people are saying, right, oh, it just ballooned up to $400 and now it's kind of sitting at $300. Just a massive price correction. I do agree, but I also think it is interesting that it's kind of had such a quick pullback. What's the reason behind that? The reason for that is the reprint news. Once the reprint news came about, people weren't too excited to hold on to this because they didn't think it could maintain the price point. Not only that, we have all these things happening in the world right now. People weren't too confident with this card. It'll be interesting to see when the reprint comes about if the prices continue to come down. And of course, the Pikachu Special Illustration Rare from Surging Sparks, selling for 478 in January, right now selling for 313. Pull this into the month graph and you can definitely see that the Surging Sparks Pikachu is really just on a downwards trajectory. Weird to see considering how desired Pikachu is as a Pokemon, right? It's such a famous Pokemon. Sorry, it is the most famous Pokemon. So a lot of Pikachu collectors out there. I do think that this card, even though it's going to come down right now, even though you probably will get some good deals on it, you know, throughout the summer period, I do think that, you know, a card like this will bounce back with a vengeance. And of course, the Hydreigon Special Illustration Rare, really awesome card, very similar to the Ceruledge Special Illustration Rare. But you can see this card found a market high in December for 108 and now selling for 62 US. In the last month alone, you can see this card from 78 bucks sitting at 60 bucks. Very interesting because, you know, Surging Sparks reprint on the way. A lot of people are not that confident with over leveraging themselves right now on Pokemon cards, and because of that, the market is a little bit bearish. So it's going to be interesting to see how this market plays out in a year from today or even 2 years from now. I think Prismatic Evolutions cards in particular will definitely calm down as the kind of months and years go on. Though as much as these card prices are changing, right, I think one question that comes up is, why are people so confident in investing in Pokemon cards? Like literally, they're just shiny cardboard. They don't really have any value outside of nostalgia, and it sometimes doesn't make sense. Though there is some science behind why Pokemon has such a strong pull power for an entire generation, and I'll reveal the answer to that right here. Within this video that's currently appearing on screen, I explain why we really collect Pokemon cards and the true scientific reason behind it. Click the video that's appearing on screen and you can learn more about that interesting topic there. I'll see you there.